Today I fucked up by reacting to my ex's old comment. Well, I was bored and I randomly started to think which of my past relationships was the best I ever had. Therefore, for a fair analyze I decided to take a look at Facebook's old conversations with my exes. Everything was okay until accidentally tapped with my thumb the screen and reacted to a message from 2015, 6 years ago. On a conversation with my ex from high school. The message was from her asking what do I like about her, in the context when we started dating, and me being a simp with simp answers. In panic, I tried to remove the reaction and deactivate my account to turn off notifications as quickly as I could, but it was too late. She had already posted a big out of context LOL on her Twitter account. After losing my dignity I didn't hesitate to delete all those conversations so curiosity won't betray me again. Thanks FB for making reactions so easy to use and for having the emoji heart as default. And fun fact, she was actually the best relationship I had so far. Too long didn't read, because I wanted to compare my exes. I reacted to a romantic message from 6 years ago and she noticed. Is simping for your girlfriend simping? She was his GF, so it's simping. I'm glad you clarified the year 6 years ago. Still a simp, _. This is sort of the reason why when I'm having drinks at home, I either turn off my phone or put it somewhere far from me. My first girlfriend I met at 22. I met her on her 19th birthday. I was her first boyfriend ever, and she was my first girlfriend ever. We had first time sex with each other. We were a couple less than a year. At her 60th birthday I have sent her a birthday card congratulation for her 60th birthday and telling her that I am still happy that she was my first girlfriend, because my first experiences with dating, love and sex are that nice, that good, and both today I fucked up memories. Thanks to her. Even now, almost 50 years later, I'm very happy for that, and regular think of her. I think first love, first experiences, first relation, even when it is only puppy love at school age, are very important. A good start gives you not only self-confidence but too, in bad times, you know, it can be different. You have known, you know better times. Oh, it exists. That gives you the energy and the belief to quit, end bad relations. Makes you brave enough to stop it, knowing better exist, is possible. By the way, I do not follow her, never contact her. The card to her 60th birthday was the only exception ever. Today I fucked up by manufacturing weapons on campus. Too long didn't read, didn't think of target arrows as weapons, wore them in my hip quiver on my walk to my friend's apartment to finish making them, got stopped by campus police. The arrows I spent $100+ on parts for got confiscated, might be facing serious trouble. I've been an archery instructor in the summers for a couple years now, and decided it was finally time to get my own gear. My friend has a fletching rig and offered to bring it to school. I'm in college, so we could work on building some custom arrows together. It's been a slow process but we're almost done with them, and I brought the small handful of finished arrows back to my own apartment on campus. He left for the weekend but said that I could stop by his apartment to finish putting together the last 4 arrows while he was out. I threw the finished arrows into the hip quiver I bought recently and put the quiver on. I was almost at my friend's apartment complex when I got stopped by the campus police, who asked if they could just chat for a bit. I explained that I did not have a bow on campus, and the arrows just had target tips on them. I thought that would be enough and that they would let me go off on my merry way. I was wrong. Campus police asked what I was doing with the arrows and I explained that I was going over to my friend's apartment to use his fletching jig, just finish up some knocking and fletching. They asked if I had any other weapons on me. That's when my brain stopped. They considered the arrows to be weapons. I told them I had a small, 3-inch pocket knife on me and where it was before reaching for it and showing them. They had no issue with the knife, but with the half-finished arrows around my waist and in my buddy's apartment. They asked for my student ID and quiver. I pulled my wallet out, showed them my student ID, and then unclipped my quiver to hand to the officers. They then asked if I could bring them to my friend's apartment, and I obliged. Texted my buddy's roommates, who are also my friends, to let them know I was coming over with the campus police, and I was let in. Campus police poked around a little, took some pictures, and said the words manufacturing weapons on campus. All of our hearts stopped. One of my buddy's roommates is an RA, who is now in danger of losing their job. Campus police finished up with their questions and pictures, told us not to make any more arrows, and left after telling me that I might be able to pick up my arrows when I go home for Easter. My RA friend called their supervisor to see if they would still have their job after all of this went down. Thankfully they most likely still will, and I left the apartment to go back to my own. I am now waiting to hear back from Ree's life to see exactly how much trouble I'm in. Edit, because people keep bringing it up. There is no archery program on campus. My buddies and I were working on forming one. In Idaho you can just legit carry guns on campus. I had a sword delivered to my dorm. When security found out about it they confiscated it and told me I could have it back next time I went home. Did you get it back? The police never just want to chat. They are not your friends. No. I panicked. The worst part of my stupidity, my roommate had told me to cover up the arrows before heading out and I didn't listen. Your school sucks. I made my arrows in a university building using the university's fletching jig. Tell me about it. Some friends and I were working on starting an archery club, but I guess that's out of the question now. Campus police are stupid as fuck. Arrows without a bow are just sticks. You didn't fuck up, they did. My pocket knife, technically illegal in my state. Did campus police give a fuck? No. They were bent out of shape about some arrows with target points on them. Today I fucked up by ignoring warning signs and almost dying of septic shock. This happened to me 3 years ago and I'm posting this as a cautionary tale on the off chance it happens to someone else in the future. A little background is needed here. My wife's family, who lives next door, had just endured a week-long stomach bug. As a result, when stomach bug-like pain started to manifest in my upper intestines, I dismissed it as being symptomatic of the aforementioned bug. I spent 2 days in a barely functional state with a light fever and progressing inability to keep warm. I was a mess, but I justified it as undergoing something normal and therefore denied frequent suggestions from my wife to get checked out. Surely in a day or two it would pass and I'd be back to myself, I thought. On the evening of the second full day of this bug, and after spending much of the day cuddled in a thick fur blanket, I went to bed shivering. Not even piling the fur blanket on top of my existing blanket and with a heating pad underneath me could change that. As I lay shivering I promised my wife that tomorrow I'd go to urgent care if I didn't feel better. Despite the violent shakes, it didn't take long before I fell into a deep sleep. At around 2 a.m., in a non-lucid, fever-raddled state of delirium, I rose from my side of the bed and walked around to the other side where my wife lay. To this day I can only recall patches of events from what happened over the next hour, but my wife tells me that I grabbed her wrists with incredible force and in a panicked voice told her it's not going to work. She was familiar with my occasional sleep talking, but could tell something was off. She tried to calm me down, but I just repeated, even more panicked, it's not going to work. I attribute my wife's attentiveness here with saving my life. Had she dismissed my ramblings as normal I would have been dead by morning. She immediately called her parents, who were fast asleep, and they came right over. At this point I recall vaguely being walked into the living room, but the world was spinning and I couldn't seem to interact with the world outside my head. I was present, but I was also a long way away. It felt almost like I was watching the world outside my head through a long tunnel. My body felt like it was sinking into the couch. I was burning up. My wife and mother-in-law pulled everything out of the freezer and covered every inch of me. They then thought to take my temperature, which at that point was 106.5 F. I lost consciousness and had a seizure, which was likely brought on by the high fever. The ambulance had been called, but the 2 EMTs were unequipped to bring me downstairs and so the fire department was called after they arrived. They strapped me to a stair-descending chair and tried talking to me, but I was an empty shell. Fortunately, After getting me outside into the winter air, my faculties began to somewhat return to me enough to realize what was happening and interact with the EMTs, who began asking me basic questions that I struggled to answer. I looked down at my shirt, one I wore often, which had large print words on it, but was unable to read it. At that point, despite my increasing lucidity, I realized something was off. My appendix had ruptured and my body was almost entirely septic. I was dying, and fast. My blood pressure was almost non-existent, and I learned my kidneys had shut down, with my lungs following suit. It is important to note here that we live in a small town with a less than competent hospital staff with a bad reputation. They had misdiagnosed, for example, my grandmother's arm that had been snapped clearly in half as being a simple sprain, and sent the affected individual home where the arm got infinitely worse. At 90 years old, this was a critical issue that almost cost her life. There are many other similar stories, but I digress. Fortunately for me, the only competent surgeon was on call that night. They needed to operate immediately, but my blood pressure was too low for the operation. They had to pump me with goodies so that I would survive the operation before taking out what was killing me. I managed to pull through, but the surgeon informed me when he saw me the next day that had I not come when I did, that I wouldn't be alive. He went as far as to say that had I tried to go to the next town over, to be treated at a better hospital, I would have died on the way. Thanks to the shutting down of my organs and sepsis, it took a week in the ICU before I was fit to go home. Too long didn't read, ignored signs of appendicitis, thinking it to be a stomach bug, for 2 days and almost died. I have a very similar sepsis story, but the huge amount of fluids given for treatment led to ARDS, a delightful condition in which you can't breathe and that often leaves patients with mild to moderate pulmonary fibrosis. The kicker to all this, I'm a paramedic, and would have easily recognized the symptoms in anyone else, but I was too stubborn to admit that I was deathly ill. Hope you're fully recovered by now. That's freaking scary. It's like her subconscious was straight up screaming, this isn't going to work. We're dying. Thank God for your wife trying from earlier to get you to go. She probably recognized that you were progressively looking worse and worse and was like, nah, this isn't a simple bug. So lucky, man. Being an ER nurse, I have seen firsthand what you went through, and the general public doesn't take into consideration just how deadly this can be. You are lucky to be alive. I hear you. I think about when I was looking at the world through a tunnel afterwards and realized that is exactly what was happening. Lucky doesn't begin to cover it. 2 weeks after my husband had a prostate biopsy, he started shivering uncontrollably. At first we thought he was getting the flu or something, but it got so bad, he couldn't even get up from his chair. I managed to get him to the ER, where they diagnosed sepsis. Team that did the biopsy should have given him antibiotics in advance but must have forgotten. Glad you made it. That's a scary experience. Thank you, Maresso. Obviously for my wife. Every night for a month afterward she would wake me up and have me answer basic questions to make sure I hadn't fallen back into that shell-like state I had been in. Lol.